There are people who walk through life carrying entire thunderstorms behind their calm expressions. They know how to smile convincingly, how to listen kindly, how to hold everyone else's sorrow without ever naming their own. These are the quiet custodians of unspoken emotion, those who translate pain into politeness, who have learned that safety sometimes means silence. But buried feelings don't disappear. They hum beneath the surface, shaping tone, posture, decision. Over years, the unsaid can become its own language. Subtle pauses, held breaths, restrained laughter. The psychology of people who never talk about their emotions isn't a story of weakness. It's a story of adaptation, of love learned carefully, and of hearts still finding their way toward a language gentle enough to hold what has always been too much to say. There is a peculiar heaviness to those moments when silence becomes a second skin. You can feel it in the air around certain people, the calm that isn't quite peace, the politeness that feels like armor. They pause before speaking, measure every response, and laugh a fraction of a second too late, as though they're double-checking the safety of joy. The weight doesn't announce itself. It builds subtly, story by story, restraint by restraint. Years of small silences, a hurt feeling brushed off, a need swallowed with a smile, a disappointment turned into a joke. These moments sediment into the psyche like fine dust, until one day they form a landscape, smooth on the surface, compressed underneath. For people who carry emotions they never talk about, calmness becomes currency. It earns approval, avoids conflict, keeps bonds intact. But what begins as self-protection slowly becomes its own cage, an internal contract signed long ago in invisible ink. There's a strange dignity in bearing emotions silently. Sometimes it's grace or loyalty. They spare others the discomfort of their pain, believing it's an act of care. They confuse endurance with virtue because endurance once kept them safe. But endurance, unchecked, hardens into loneliness. Imagine the inside of such a person's mind. A library, shelves upon shelves of emotions alphabetized by year and circumstance. Each labeled and stored, anger left unopened since adolescence, fear boxed neatly beside outdated hope, every feeling cataloged but rarely read. They are often the reliable ones, the friend you call when your world collapses, the colleague who smooths the tension in the room, the partner who says, "It's fine," even when it isn't. Their empathy flows outward effortlessly, inward it hesitates. On quiet nights, when the performance of composure fades and there is no one left to protect, they sometimes notice the ache. It sits between their ribs, saying nothing, waiting patiently to be named. The internal monologue says, "I'm okay," out of habit, long after it stopped being true. In every quiet person, there's a story vibrating at a frequency too low for the world to hear. The weight of their quiet is not emptiness, it's fullness contained. And somewhere within that architecture lies the seed of a question, faint but persistent. What would happen if I were finally allowed to feel everything I have carried? Silence rarely begins in adulthood. It is taught, modeled, inherited. In the earliest moments of emotional learning, a child scans the room for permission. Permission to cry, to protest, to overflow. And sometimes what they find instead is discomfort in the faces of those they love most. The sigh of a tired parent, the quick subject change, the quiet suggestion that it's not a big deal. Each cue etches itself into the nervous system. Feel less, the body learns, and you'll be safer here. Some grow up under the watch of emotionally distant caregivers, gentle perhaps in action, but unreachable in emotional depth. Others are raised in volatile homes where expression risks rejection or ridicule. In both places, vulnerability costs something. And children, intuitive as they are, understand transaction early. They trade expression for approval, truth for security. Culture plays its role too. Don't make a scene, be strong, keep it private. For generations, endurance has been mistaken for dignity. Emotional privacy becomes an inherited dress code, unquestioned, well-fitted, socially elegant. By the time they reach adulthood, silence is fluent. They can speak about anything except what matters. This conditioning calcifies through repetition. Neural pathways strengthen around avoidance. The amygdala associates openness with danger. Sharing becomes synonymous with exposure. Even loving relationships can't undo this overnight. The wiring was laid early, like emotional muscle memory. The roots of silence are deep, intimate, and perfectly logical within their soil. Behind each quiet person is a story not of neglect alone, but of devotion, culture, and hope misdirected. Understanding this doesn't unravel the pattern, it only lights it softly from within. Silence feels psychological, but the body is never fooled. Every unspoken emotion still travels through its circuits, electrical, chemical, hormonal. To suppress feeling is not to delete it, but to reroute it. When a person feels sadness or anger and doesn't express it, the limbic system still registers the charge. The amygdala fires, the hypothalamus releases stress hormones, readying the body for a story that never gets told. The result is a chronic half-state, arousal without resolution. Neurologically, this is expensive. Suppression demands constant cognitive management. The prefrontal cortex must keep rehearsing the instruction to stay calm. It's like holding a beach ball underwater, possible, even impressive, but exhausting. The body carries the unsaid as if it were unfinished work. Chronic suppression correlates with elevated blood pressure, muscle tension, inflammation, and fatigue. Every unspoken feeling is metabolized somehow, if not through words, then through the flesh. Memory, too, is shaped by silence. When emotion is muted, memory fragments, the story loses its color. People who suppress often describe their past as a blur. The narrative self becomes undernourished. The body finds temporary outlets, clenched jaws, overeating, fidgeting, insomnia. Emotional energy seeks motion like water seeking downhill. Still, when the action stops, the original feeling stands waiting, unchanged. Yet there is something quietly admirable about this machinery. Suppression shows intelligence, an organism trying to regulate chaos with the tools available. The body says, "You survived." What it forgets to update is that survival is not the same as living. Inside every person who hides their feelings exists a quiet duel, between the instinct to connect and the instinct to stay safe. It unfolds in subtle decisions, the pause before answering a caring question, the reflex to say, "I'm fine," with a practiced half smile, the swallowed truth that trembles just behind the tongue. On one side stands the longing to be known. To share emotion is to signal trust, to ask for belonging. Yet, for those schooled in silence, belonging carries risk. To reveal is to hand over a piece of the self that someone else might mishandle. The result is an emotional double life, outwardly competent, generous, good-humored, inwardly, perpetually editing. The mind becomes a newsroom where every thought must pass through censorship before being published. Vulnerability gets rewritten into irony, fear, into busyness, anger, into restraint. This friction drains emotional energy. When these systems fire in opposite directions, the body feels the confusion as tension, fatigue, or emptiness. It's like pressing both the brake and accelerator, motionless yet burning fuel. Relationships highlight the conflict. When someone asks, "What's wrong?" the protective reflex says, "Nothing, truly." The longing whispers, "Please, ask again, just not too hard." The contradiction often drives others away, deepening the belief that silence was right all along. Over time, suppressed emotion can morph into displaced moods, irritability with no clear cause, melancholy in moments of success. Sometimes it manifests as perfectionism, the attempt to control externally what feels uncontrollable within. But even the most disciplined silence has limits. In unexpected moments, the buried self surfaces. During music that feels too true, in tears sprung from fatigue, in the sudden tenderness of being sincerely seen. These brief flashes remind the wearer that warmth still exists underneath. This inner war is not an enemy to conquer but a signal, a sign that two vital needs coexist: safety and honesty. The challenge is not to silence either voice, but to teach them coexistence. Change, for those who live in silence, rarely arrives with trumpets. It arrives quietly, through moments so small they could be missed. A question asked with genuine care, a late-night conversation where the guard slips, a tear that escapes before permission is granted. These are the hairline fractures in the emotional armor. At first, the person often mistakes these cracks for failure, but the paradox is that the breakdown of composure is not collapse, it's emergence. Something beneath the surface is pushing toward truth. This turning point begins when awareness outpaces habit. The mind starts to observe itself. Why do I always say I'm fine? This metacognition creates the first doorway. Every reflection weakens the reflex to hide. Often, another human serves as catalyst. Someone patient enough to listen without repairing, who offers presence instead of solutions. Such encounters reprogram the nervous system. Biology begins to whisper, maybe expression doesn't mean danger anymore. There's often an exact moment remembered later with clarity, the night they finally said out loud, "I'm not okay, and the world didn't end." That is the sound of emotional truth entering shared air. Inside, the nervous system exhales for, perhaps the first time in years. The shoulders drop, the breath lengthens. The body, once so busy guarding, begins to rest. The physiological state changes, compassion replaces control as the primary language. The turning point isn't dramatic, it's simply the beginning of permission. Permission to let complexity coexist with calm, to remain strong without remaining silent. People discover that expressing emotion doesn't annihilate their strength, it diversifies it. When the armor finally softens, what emerges isn't eloquence, it's uncertainty. Words stumble, meanings blur. Yet that very clumsiness is evidence of progress. The emotional vocabulary relearning its native tongue. Learning to feel again requires unlearning first. The habit of self-judgment, the instinct to analyze feeling instead of experience it. Many begin by noticing the body rather than the mind. My chest feels tight. There's warmth behind my eyes. Description precedes understanding. This is interoceptive awareness, the ability to locate emotion within the body and name it accurately. Studies show that naming an emotion reduces its physiological intensity. Language gives shape to chaos. Safe relationships accelerate this learning. The presence of a non-judging witness rewires expectations of intimacy. The person begins to test vulnerability, sharing a small truth, watching it be received without rejection. Each successful interaction becomes evidence against the fear that honesty leads to harm. Internally, new neural patterns begin to form. Pathways of avoidance weaken through disuse, while those of acknowledgement strengthen. What once triggered stress hormones now triggers curiosity. The brain adapts to honesty, yet learning to feel also means feeling pain with clarity. Old unresolved narratives may resurface demanding closure. The difference now is support, the self no longer isolated in its experience. Gradually, emotion transforms from intruder to messenger. Sadness signals need, anger outlines boundaries. Fear requests reassurance. Joy, once fleeting, stretches its stay. The language of feeling is not mastered, only inhabited. To say I'm hurting or I missed you without apology is an act of evolution. Through repetition, the body learns a new truth, honesty and harmony can coexist. Release is not dramatic, it slips in through ordinary moments, the sunlight landing softly on a floor once ignored, the breath that doesn't need to be managed, the unexpected ease of laughing without worrying that it's too loud. After years of self-containment, release feels unfamiliar, quiet, weightless, almost fragile. It's a gentle uncoiling. Muscles that have memorized tension begin to forget. The voice, once rehearsed into precision, begins to sound unguarded, textured with humanity. What separates this state from the old calm is intention. The calm of suppression was brittle, defensive. The calm of release is porous, alive. It invites rather than avoids. Emotional release doesn't erase the past, it integrates it. The stories stay, but their temperature cools. Triggers lose voltage. In neuroscience, this is memory reconsolidation, revisiting a memory in safety and rewiring its emotional charge. Release feels like forgiveness that doesn't need an object. Recognizing that silence was never betrayal, it was strategy. What once looked like weakness now glows with context, with respect for the ingenuity of survival. People who once hid behind empathy now meet others as equals. Conversation deepens. Love ceases to be something earned through composure and becomes something exchanged through honesty. Boundaries clarify not as walls, but as gentle edges. Physiologically, the system mirrors this reconciliation. The breath stabilizes. Muscles ease their constant readiness. It is as if the body, long forbidden from resting, finally receives permission to belong, to the moment, to another, to itself. The grace of release is that it requires no grand action. Healing doesn't arrive with a drumbeat. It appears in everyday mercies, choosing to rest instead of perform, to tell the truth rather than edit it, to let tears come and trust they will pass. And there comes a day, perhaps noticed only in hindsight, when they speak about their feelings without preamble, without apology. The words simply exist as natural as breathing. Silence is no longer confinement, it has become choice, a space between sentences, not a wall between hearts. So the circle closes. What began as suppression ends in spaciousness. The psychology of those who never talked about their emotions becomes the psychology of those who can, softly, wisely, with reverence for the long road that led them here. The weight of quiet transforms into the grace of release. a stillness that holds everything because nothing inside it has to hide anymore.